Hello, welcome everyone to the Flux Dev Meeting for June 4th. Uh,
Hello.
hey, Mateus. Hey, Lee.
So we released Flux 2.6 last week. There were a few issues, but I think mostly everything went smooth given the size of the release. Released too many things at the same time. So for that amount, I think it was actually okay. So with the changes with regards to authentication in the OCI repository and image repository APIs, we kind of shipped a few breaking changes. They are now documented in the blog post with a bit of delay between the time we released Flux 2.6 and when we actually updated the blog post to include these breaking changes. But essentially, they are so in order to use automatic authentication without secrets for container registries, so OCI repository and image repository APIs, what Flux was doing before was kind of, not completely, but kind of ignoring the spec.provider field. So spec.provider is supposed to be AWS, Azure, or GCP, right? And that's supposed to drive authentication for the container registries from these cloud providers. And what we were doing before was we were detecting the cloud provider from the URL of the repository. And if the configured provider, so spec.provider, matches that, then we use authentication for that provider. If not, then we would simply ignore the field and not consider that image repository part of like compatible or matching that provider. So now what we're doing is we look first at the spec.provider field. And then we check if the URL is compatible with the configured provider. If it's not, then we error out. So for example, in practice, one of the issues we got after the upgrade, after the release, was somebody was using spec.provider set to AWS in the repository public.ecr.aws/AWS controllers Kates Kubernetes. So basically the image repository of ACK, right? The two that the Kubernetes controllers that AWS publishes for provisioning AWS infrastructure. So they were setting spec.provider to AWS and using that repository. That used to work. Why that used to work? Because we were just ignoring the provider field if the URL didn't match the regex that we're using for AWS. And the regex we use for AWS does not match this particular repo. It doesn't. Never did. So our previous code was not detecting this repo as AWS and was just ignoring spec.provider. Now it's not, right? Like if it's spec.provider is AWS, then the repository has to match the regex. If it doesn't, we error out. So this specific repository never used authentication in Flux.
Always
Flux
plugged in there,
never,
right?
yeah, because this repo is public, right?
Mm.
It never required authentication. Flux never did automatic authentication for this repository. So the solution in this case is to set the provider to generic or remove the field, like remove spec.provider or set it to generic. And that's the same you should do if you want to authenticate with secrets. If you have a Docker config secret, like an image pool secret with spec.secretref, or if you configured an image pool secret in a source account and you set this source account with spec.source account name, to use those, you need to set spec.provider to generic or don't set it. So this behavior is documented. It was in the Flux docs for a long time. It was there for a long time. It was just not enforced by the controller. So in this release, we started enforcing that documented behavior. And yeah, so this is the breaking change with regards to auth. And there was one more, which is we are now, after RFC 0010, right, object level workload entity, we are now using a unified authentication library everywhere. So all the controllers are now doing, like, using the exact same code for authentication with the cloud providers and the CLI as well. And before, like in Flux 2.5, this, like, there were, each place was using its own code. Actually, Bucket is still, I didn't change anything in Bucket yet, but after 2.7, it will be the same. Like at the end of 2.7, like in Flux 2.7, everything will be using the same code. So the first half of things are now using the same code in 2.6. And in customized controller for decryption with SOPs, in Azure key, the key vault from Azure, right? That code was like, so there's this function that all the cloud providers have, which you call, and this function gives you the authentication configuration that is retrieved from the environment of the application. And in Azure, this function also tries to shell out to Azure binaries. In customized controller, we had a fork of this function, removing the parts that tried to shell out to binaries. And that code was there for a long time in customized controller. The same code was not in, like, I only found that same code, not exact same code, but the same kind of adaptation to avoid shelling out in Bucket or something like that. Like I looked into other places in Flux and I found it only in customized controller and somewhere else. So I realized that we were actually lacking the same thing in other places, right? So we copied this code from customized controller to the library, the common library. And now we're using this library for the CLI and some of the APIs. And now there's an edge case, a specific case, where somebody was using the Flux push artifact command, and it was relying on this fact that our code was shelling out to the Azure binaries in an Azure DevOps pipeline. So they had configured this pipeline with some static secret, like a client secret, like an Azure Service Principal with a client secret. And the the Flux push artifact command was shelling out to some Azure binary that was using this configuration with this static secret. And we are now no longer shelling out, so this is not working anymore. But I also, and this is not something I think, like, I don't think we need to fix this because the the Flux push artifact command and all the OCI related commands from the Flux CLI, they all use the same code of the library, and it still supports both kinds of authentication through environment variables. You can still use client secret, you can use client certificate, you can use workload identity. All of that uh, just requires the environment variables to be set properly. So they can, in their Azure DevOps pipeline, they can set the Azure tenant ID, Azure client ID, and Azure client secret, and that should enable them to use secret authentication with the Flux push artifact command. It's also possible, I haven't tested this yet, but in an Azure DevOps pipeline, you can also configure workload identity. So there's like some steps you have to do there, and then what this probably does, and I'll confirm after I test it, is that it sets up the 4 environment variables that you need for workload identity with the Azure library. So they can use that. They say they can't because I don't know, probably they're not from the platform team and they either the platform team doesn't allow it, or maybe they don't want to reach out to the platform team or something like that. But they said, oh no, I can't set up workload entity for this right now. And they didn't like ask for more details about why they can't do that, and they didn't say anything. So and given that we still support secrets and workload entity, I'm kind of waiting on more input from them to decide if we actually should fix or do something about that or not. Um, so far, I don't think so. And last thing was the like I introduced the a check in the reconciliation logic of image um, policy to check if the image repo was ready. And that was kind of spamming like a red herring error to like for some people. And we removed that in Flux 2.6.1 that we released over the weekend. So that is fixed now. So those 3 things were like kind of the highlights, I would say, from the release, I guess.
We also have this report of non-host errors
Oh
on
yeah.
SSH in source controller. So I
True.
trace it back what exactly happened to SSH. We didn't change from 2.5 to 2.6 anything in our own SSH implementation, but we haven't actually implemented the SSH from scratch. We, of course, rely on Golang X crypto SSH library. That one had the CV for IPv6. So we have the difference between 2.5 and 2.6 is the update of the crypto SSH package into all of Flux controllers and so on. It's only used in source controller and image automation controller, of course. My conclusion is that fix of the in the SSH library may have affected non-host keys generated with 2.5, and I've asked the users to try to regenerate the host keys and see if that fixes stuff. We are not going to roll back the SSH package in any way. So yeah, I'm not sure if we can do anything about it. It's hopefully regenerating the host keys will work with the new algorithm. The Flux CLI has a command when you do Flux create secret git and you give it an SSH address. We generate a secret with both the private key and the known hosts that we discover for the server. The CLI has also been updated to the latest SSH package, so hopefully people using our CLI to regenerate the known host will solve the issue. But this is something that we need to keep investigating with those users. So far, I think four users are currently affected by this, and yeah, we'll need more help from them to figure out what's going on.
Don't you want to come to the meeting room? B and I are here.
No,
Okay.
too much noise. Anything else?
It's worth bringing up. Yeah, thank you, Matthias. It's worth bringing up that we will be looking at doing a little bit of public relations for FluxCon, and we really would like to get some quality submissions for the CFP. I think some invitations have also gone out for folks helping out with the program committee. I'll take some notes on this as well, just in our meeting notes here. But if you've got in mind use cases, end users, folks that you would like to collaborate with, to speak for practitioners at FluxCon, if you have organizations that you think that the maintainer and community team should be reaching out to with, or making sure that their team has tickets to FluxCon as well, then we really want to make this a successful event. So.
Yes. So we are going to publish a blog post this week, right?
Yeah.
To advertise FluxCon.
And the deadline, I didn't notice if you mentioned the deadline, but the deadline is June 30.
For the CFPs, yes.
Yep.
I'm talking to a few different groups already. I'll have a few submissions myself. I'm not sure what they'll be yet, but
Don't
Brilliant.
tell us. Some of us are on the CFP committee.
did you
But
say
yeah, looking
Tomo?
forward. What?
Did you say Tomo?
I mean, some of us here will be
Some
on
of
the
you are.
committee.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, as far as what we've covered in this meeting, we did a little bit of a retro of the Flux 2.6 release, and some of the changes that were shipped, rationale. We're chasing down those 4 users who are reporting known host issues, maybe regenerating the keys will fix things. And we're going to be doing a little bit of PR around FluxCon to make sure that people know that they can submit their talks, that we can elevate our user voices, and that people are going to be getting tickets to attend. So if there's no other topics, then we can probably stop the recording and hop off.
Yeah, I'm starving. We need to go eat something.
Is that a big neon control plane behind you?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think my Wait, let's see if I can remove the blur.
Nice.
It's like a party.
Yeah, we are this week. Everybody from Control Plane is in London. We are doing a summer party event, so talking a lot about Flux as well.
Cool.
Okay, let's wrap it up. If there are no other topics, I'll see you all next week. Hopefully, if we find something that we can fix for the null host, we'll be doing another patch release. But at this moment, I don't see anything that we can actually do about it. Anyway, Kingdom, if you can keep an eye on Slack, if someone reports something around the SSH stuff, please point them to the issue. So we can accumulate their things
And
like
please like to give details on their setup and configuration.
yeah. So I asked was the server and so on. The only detail was GitLab self-hosted on-prem. The CV was around and the modifications were around IPv6. That person didn't tell if the server is exposed on IPv6 or not, but that's the hunch I have. I think it's around the CV fix impacted somehow how the non-host keys are being discovered and calculated. There is so a non-host entry can have multiple entries for the same host with different algorithms, and the SSH package picks the preferred one from there. We had this issue before for I think 2 years ago. It was a problem where also something that we couldn't fix. Basically, the preferred key ordering changed to I think the change was preferring the most the up-to-date algorithms, right? If it was a newer algorithm for calculation, that was the preferred one, while the server were advertising the SHA-1 or whatever other algorithm, right? So Flux will pick up an algorithm version, then the server will say, "Hey, but I'm giving you this response back," right? And that thing was like you need to regenerate the server keys, and Oracle or the Oracle self hosted Git had this issue, and they fixed it on their side. It wasn't something that we could fix in our side. They changed how they advertise their server keys. That fix it. I'm not sure if this time fix may be required in GitLab itself. So it's important for people if they are like having this issue, let's try to get everybody on the Flux issue, accumulate all the feedback there, and then we can figure out a way for maybe we need to reach out to GitLab or I don't know what's the outcome of this, but having everybody on that issue in GitHub is the best we can do right now and collect as many information as we can.
So for whatever it's worth, I'm on GitLab on-prem. I haven't seen any issue with the host keys. I've only
You
upgraded my
upgraded?
staging environment is upgraded to Flux 2.6. I haven't seen any issues. So it's
But are you using SSH or are you using a PAT?
we are using SSH.
Okay, okay. And I'm assuming you are on the latest GitLab release?
We are on 18.0.0. We haven't got the patch release yet from last week, but
Okay.
Are
that's
you using IPv4 addressing or IPv6?
we're using, I'm about 90% sure IPv4.
Yeah, typically it should most people are using that internally. So I wonder if maybe this end user has IPv6 addresses and they're maybe hashed differently into the known host entries or something.
Yeah. I mean, if this problem was for any GitLab instance, I expect more than 3 people to do a thumbs up on that issue. Like, I think we would have been bombarded by Flux users everywhere if it was actually a widespread problem. I think it's a niche use case. I think maybe there is some IPv6 in there, or maybe some proxy in front of the self-hosted thing that does other things with it and stuff like that. I don't think it's widespread at this point. Also, I'm not sure if people have upgraded that fast. So
Okay, well, I know what to look for.
thanks, Kingdom. Yeah,
Like
let's
maybe
link.
we should, like in the issue, we should. Yeah, I see you asked, are these Git servers self-hosted IPv6? Yeah, maybe we should like think about all the information that is relevant that we need to know about their setup and post a comment there saying, hey, please give us this
Yeah, well,
information.
we can't ask them for the non-host keys because
Yeah, I
these
mean,
are
not that,
self-hosted, IPs
yeah,
are a
yeah, not
secret,
the,
whatever.
whatever is secret information, we don't need, but like, we need to know if how the configuration looks like even with redacting the keys and whatever, right?
Yeah, another interesting thing here in the reported issue, they are not the non-host keys are not generated with the Flux CLI. So this is a setup with Terraform, with Flux operator, and they have generated their own keys somehow with OpenSSH. I don't know how, and they are just feeding them to the secret, right? So I'm not sure if how these were generated, if they use the Flux CLI or they use the other tool. That can also be a factor here. If you've used a very old version of OpenSSL, generate the keys, or the SSH scan that you use to get the known host is, I don't know, ancient. It may order the keys in a particular way. Now we've upgraded the SSH package that may have changed the priorities, right? So there are many unknowns from the report. Doesn't give us any kind of information. It says, I've upgraded, it fails, and that's it. So
So,
there is nothing to go about that report. The only thing that I suggested there, please regenerate the keys and try again. They said they will be doing this today. If they come back and say this fixed or didn't fix, then we should ask them for more information around what tooling was used to generate the known hosts and how the known hosts look like without giving us the actual address.
Is
So
the X crypto version the same in Terraform provider and the rest of the things?
Has nothing to do with Terraform. They're feeding the keys directly. It's not
so
Terraform who is generating the keys.
it looks like the original person who reported this issue says that it seems like it's fixed for their GitLab instance. And uh I don't know what they mean. It just says
Yeah,
thanks for the
me neither.
info. It seems fixed. I'll test it.
I
Seems fixed because they regenerated, they downgraded. I don't know.
I was warned by
They,
my ops team that GitLab tends to break things with major releases pretty severely. And while I haven't seen this issue, I have been chasing down all kinds of issues with our latest GitLab upgrade, including the key rotation API stopped working, the token rotation, um, which I think was related to the Python GitLab library that something was broken in the release automation. So they had made the changes in the API client and they assumed they were released because no one was checking, I guess. Because they're supposed to do an automatic release at the end of every month, but they hadn't for some number of months. So there's anyway, this has nothing to do with host keys because it's a client issue, but
No, it can be a server issue because they keep the things there. It may be a server issue. Like last time, it was a server
client
issue
library that was broken, so
but I think the client library in GitLab advertises, it creates the keys for the server to advertise them, right? They need to generate the keys, right? No one hard codes those. So maybe the generation of the server keys changed with the GitLab version, right? Our own way of doing the verification also changed because we upgraded the SSH package. And maybe the combination of two got to this problem. Anyway, it's a good information that you are saying you are on the latest GitLab with Flux 2.6 and you don't have this issue, but you are using IPv4. The thing that drastically changed in upstream in our code is for IPv6. So we are, let's say, getting a little bit more information of what can go wrong and what to ask.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kingdom. I'll see you all next week.
Have a
Bye.
good week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.